Hey, this is Allie Edwards and welcome to a Project Life video for July 2019. This year I am doing Project Life monthly in a 9x12 album, and I am back with another month here and another look at how I'm telling stories in this project. So my hope, or my original intention with this, was to get everything, to try to see if I could get it into one 9x12 album. And I'm about halfway through the year, or I guess we're probably over halfway through the year here, and I think it's possible. We'll see. Otherwise I may need to incorporate another album. Those of you that are wondering about our 9x12 albums, we are hoping to have more of the black version available in stock mid to late October. There's always kind of fluctuation and flexibility, well, flexibility because that's just what happens with the manufacturing of our albums in China, and we've had a variety of different issues and stumbling blocks and things that have come up recently, along with the China tariffs that are kind of impacting a bunch of things related to albums, but we hope to have more of these available before the end of the year, especially if you want to try this size next year. So that's kind of an update on that. Other things I have, so what I am going to be working with for this one, at least initially, is I'm using the Stories by the Month kit. This is the July 2019 kit. This has already been available for sale on my site. We have the digital version available. This is a subscription, so what's up there right now I think is for September. So it's something that you can join at any time, more focused on the months of the year, storytelling, that kind of thing, versus our story kits, which are theme based on a variety of different themes. So what I have in here right now is I've printed out a few things. I printed out an enlargement. This is a 9x12 page. This is going to go on the back of this one from June. So June, just as a kind of a refresher here, I incorporated a bunch of different sizes, and then I did a pattern paper here. So I've got the full page photo printed here. I have some of the cards from the kit that I've pulled out already. Chipboard pieces, was a word phrase, sticker sheet there, the rest of it I have in here. Each of the Stories by the Month kits comes with a stamp, so I might try to incorporate those this time. And then this one had wood veneer stars, which are really fun, and I think that I want to definitely play with and incorporate into my spread. And each one comes with one of these cute little pouches that you can repurpose or just keep your kit together, depending on how you like to store your things. I like to repurpose them for lots of other things, travel related and whatnot. So looking down here, I have a 6x12 insert that I've started. This is a divided page protector 6x12 insert, and I'm thinking that this is going to go in there. I also have two 6x12 photos that I printed, one from the 4th of July, the other one is from a parade that Simon participated in. So the main story that I'm hitting on right now is 4th of July, and then I still need to print out additional photos to cover a few other things that happened during the course of the month. If you've been watching my videos this year, you've seen that each month, kind of on average, I've told like 3 different stories. I've picked out identified 3 stories for myself and then focused on those. Last month I kind of did a little more of a mishmash. This month I'm not really having 3 main specific stories either. One of them is definitely going to be about the 4th of July, but for the rest of the month I'm not sure yet. So what I'm going to do right now before I proceed any farther, besides getting these guys printed out, is I'm going to go back and look on my computer and see what other things that I have for July. What were other stories that I wanted to make sure that I included. I know I have another picture here that's from the 4th of July, and I think that I was planning that I'm just going to add these ones to the back of this guy here. I think just for simplicity for myself, I'm going to pull this out of the album, and then I'll be able to look at it a bit closer here and have it lay flat, kind of think about what other things do I want to do. I think I'm going to use either this page protector, which has the 4x6 pockets, and the 3x4, or I will use the 3x4 one. I'm not sure yet what I want to have kind of be the end of the sandwich for my story for July. A lot of times when I'm doing this, I like to have the 9x12, a full page 9x12, be the pieces of bread, essentially, if you want to think about this as a sandwich, with these other pages then inserted in the middle that all feel like the filling, right? Or those, if you like that kind of a metaphor. All right, so let's take a closer look at the process here. You can see that I printed out a bunch more 3x4 images, and I also took the 3x4 pocket 9x12 page protector and I cut off the edge. So I cut off 3 of the pockets on the end there so that it would be a 6x12 or closer to a 6x12 that I could have still make that feel like that was the filling on the inside of the sandwich rather than being the same size page. Just a personal thing. You can choose whatever you want. I ended up having just about the right amount of photos. I did need to go back in and print a couple more. And that's pretty much what I'm doing right here, is just kind of arranging and figuring out, where do I want all of these photos to go? What makes sense? Can I group them by type or by style? And what I ended up finding as I printed these out was that I had a bunch that were kind of yard, garden, farmer's market related. And then I also had a bunch that were hiking related, and then some that were general family related. So that kind of became my guide for how I decided where I was going to put those 3x4 photos or anything that didn't have to do with the 4th of July. So you can see I'm laying it out there. I'm kind of trying to decide, you know, what other things do I want to include in here? What kinds of embellishments do I want to use? I pull out a few different things from the chipboard set. I've got that July 4th there. Kind of trying to decide, do I really, you know, where do I want to use these things and how do I want to embellish and emphasize the stories that I'm telling this time. So sometimes when I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, what I do is go back to what I know, and I know that I want to add those Avery index tabs, so I started adding those on. And then I decided that I wanted to look in my box of numbers and find a number 4, preferably a large number 4, which is what I found is the cork number 4 there. And then I decided to emboss that. I wanted to make it white. So I pulled out all my embossing stuff, my embossing powder, my embossing ink, my heat gun, my snappy tray that I love using for embossing. And you'll see that in here in just a second. There it is. So I put the 4 in there, and then I just dumped the white powder on top. You can do it any color you want. This is on cork, and you can just heat the embossing powder right onto the cork, which is what I am doing with my heat gun right there. Embossing is a great way to recolor embellishments if you have them and you want to make them a different color, and it's, you know, different than painting it. Just a different approach. And so I decided to also emboss on some of the wood veneer stars there. I did some white, and then you'll also see that I did do some red as well, simply by getting embossing ink on one side there and then laying them down inside the snappy tray and then dumping the powder on top, pulling them out gently with your fingers. And then with these ones, I try really hard to have the heat gun right over top of it, because you can see that they want to go all over the place. So if you wait to turn on the heat until you have it right over the top, that tends to work a little bit better, but you can see they were kind of jumping around. So I did a couple white ones, and then I am going to go ahead here and do a couple red ones, knowing that I could, you know, use them throughout my spread here, or the different inserts that I have for my July stories, or that if I don't use all of them, I can always use red or white stars, and I'll just put them into my star embellishment little box that I have, which, if you guys have seen some of my other videos where I talk about organizing, I like to organize things by shape often. Some things are all chipboards together, but some things are like that. So then I have myself here some embossed little things. You can do other things with them. You could stamp on them. You could emboss other shapes on them, but I just decided that I wanted to go pretty plain and simple here. So I have that number 4. I'm thinking that I want to add the red star on there. This is for a bike ride, a neighborhood bike parade that they have on the 4th of July that one of my friends puts together. And so it's a super fun opportunity to get outside. The girls decorated their bikes. It was really fun. So I used rolling adhesive to add that directly onto the photo, and then I'm adding one of the word phrase stickers below the number 4. I love the white word phrase stickers with the black type. Then I have my other large photo here is Simon is a Boy Scout, and he was in a parade, a different parade that was later in the month. So I'm just adding a chipboard piece and a star. And then I decided I wanted to use the stays on ink and stamp So Much Fun down on the bottom. I left myself some space there to be able to add some journaling. Actually, fun looks like, that's the stamp that I'm using. So I'm using stays on right onto the photo, fun looks like with the dots, and then I'm gonna hand write a little bit of journaling just that gives some details about what he was doing and what flag he was holding and those kinds of things, and how was his first parade. And he was so excited. Like, he was really excited to be marching in this parade that lasts like 20 minutes. It was a super quick parade. So I'm sticking this back in there, and then I decided to add this date, the actual date of when that parade was, on top there. I used the Stays on ink for that, and then just hand wrote a little bit directly onto the photo about the bike parade. I love having the contrast of these extra large images or these full page images in with all of the 3x4s and 4x6s, especially when I'm doing, when everything is inside the page protectors. I just think it's a nice contrast, and it's just a fun way to be able to play with your photos. And I just like seeing them like that. Like, that's a big part of the story for me, are definitely the photos. So adding the index tabs. So I have 3 inserts, and I wanted to vary the spacing of my index tabs, and I end up filling those in and stamping on the tabs at the end there. Again, still kind of trying to figure out now, doing this laying down thing, looking at it. What do I like? What do I don't like? Where do I want to put these embellishments? How much do I want to embellish? I really like that picture of the kids standing in the doorway with the fireworks and the flag. And our house there. So I didn't want to add a lot of stuff on here. And what I ended up doing is taking one of the embossed stars, using one of the word phrase stickers, and then adhering it right on there. I did go back in, you'll see in just a second, I ended up using foam squares, or cutting up foam squares and adding them behind the word phrase sticker so that it was a little more stable on top of that star and then on top of the picture as well. And I ended up repeating this little embellishment design thing, whatever you want to call it, word phrase sticker on top of a wood veneer star, and a few other places on my spread as well. Then as I was looking at this, I was trying to figure out, okay, I know I want to add a story, a little bit more of a story about the 4th of July, or add a little bit, a few more words. And so I decided to use a circle punch out some circles from white cardstock, cut them in half, and use them as journaling spots on top of my photos. We've offered products like this a few times in the past that are half circles, and I love them. They're a great opportunity to stick something directly on the photo. What you can see that I did here is I actually took it over to my sewing machine, and I stitched with some red thread directly onto the half circle of cardstock and the photo. So it just gives a little bit of extra something. It's a little bit more texture. It's a little bit, it's just a little bit more of something. And so I did that a few more times here. Usually when I do this, I do use a little bit of adhesive so it'll stay in place, and then I just run it through my sewing machine. And I don't sew on fabric at all. I just sew paper, and that's the kind of things that go through my home sewing machine. I've had the same one for years now. It's a Brother machine. I'll link it below. But it's not any fancy or anything special. It's just a very basic machine that does what I need it to do. So then on one of these, another 4th of July photo, I'm repeating that same embellishment with the word phrase sticker and the star, just to, again, a really easy way to add a little bit of something onto your pictures and still let the pictures kind of do what they do, which is tell a story in and of themselves. So moving my way through the project here, through the through my inserts, because essentially I've got kind of the 4th of July is one insert that I did end up adding in a picture of Katie's new baby there. And I'm also taking off the July 4th chipboard piece because I decided I wanted to say a little bit of something else. And I took one of those circles, and instead of doing it halfway, I made it kind of a corner journaling thing. We're just going to call it a thing. And I added a chipboard circle from the July Stories by the Month 2019 kit on top of there. And then just adding a little bit more context of the fact that we stayed at home this year for the 4th of July and just hung out in our driveway and used Costco fireworks, that kind of thing. One of the chipboard pieces references a boom, so I wanted to make sure that I added that on there. And then I'm moving into the other stories, or the other pieces from the month. So again, first up, I've got that just a little, you know, some pictures of farmer's market, pictures of a walk. There's a really big magnolia tree that I walk by often, and then a little bit from my own garden and just telling a little bit of a story about that. Basically what I'm saying is that July is usually the month where I'm still into watering. By the time it gets to August, I often feel like I'm over the watering piece, and then things kind of start to die, and that's just that. It just happens. It's one of the things that happens for me. So that's what I wrote about there and added another chipboard piece. Then over here on the back side, again, there was a little bit of hiking. So I had some different photos from hiking this past month, as well as different photos of family things. I took out one of the pattern cards there from the Stories by the Month kit. I'm adding Get Outside on top, and then I'm going to add some journaling on there that talks about how this will be the month that I will remember as the start of really kind of a love affair with hiking. And the unfortunate thing is I hurt my foot in August, and I'm doing this in August. And so I'm kind of out of the hiking game for a little bit until my ankle recovers, which is a major bummer, but it definitely, July was definitely the month where that started. The love of that and kind of the interest in doing that with a friend of mine really launched. And so that's what I wrote about on that other journal card there. I think it's nice to remember that you can have one 3x4 journal card that can tell, you know, an overall story of the photos that you're including. And I'm really liking this monthly approach in the way that it makes me look for patterns, or it makes me look for things that were important enough over the course of the month for me to take pictures of them. What pops up when I look back at all the photos that I took in July? This is one of the things that popped up. Things, you know, being outside, taking photos of things outside, farmer's market, those are everyday kinds of things during this time of the year. And I really am kind of appreciating that opportunity to go in and look at my photos from that standpoint, from this monthly standpoint. And that's working really well for me. So I'm adding chipboard pieces to a few more here. I decided to do another of the half circles on this photo of my friends and I hiking. As you can tell, like I wasn't super concerned with having all of the hiking pictures right next to each other. They're kind of mixed in a little bit. I did corral some of them together, but some of them are fitting on this other sheet here, and that was totally fine. Again, it's, you know, different stories from this one month, right? All coming together, even if they are just in photos. Let's see. I also added the Enjoy Life chipboard piece. I cut off the top. I like things when things interact with the edge, so I just added that up to the top on there. And just kind of adding a few more things as I go, trying to decide, do I want to add on additional pieces. And then I also used one of the journal cards in the kit, says things I like about July and things I didn't like as much about July. And so I used that as the jumping off point to just tell a few of those stories, like Anna and her cousin Gabrielle and my sister stayed with my parents for a week. So I talked a little bit about how I loved that. I loved how we had lots of different kids in and out of the house this month, with school being out and summertime and just lots of kids and puzzles and all those things. What did I write? I for the things that I didn't like as much, I think that I talked a little bit about watering the plants. I'm pretty sure that came up. Let's see. It's hard for me to see. I think there's a picture. I'll include a picture on my blog post so you can see exactly what I wrote on there. But I was just looking for something, you know, what are things that I didn't like as much? And I think that those are important to kind of identify as well. Next up was adding stamped pieces to the inside of the Avery Index tab. I picked out a rolling stamp and am putting a few things down on there. I almost always mess up when I do this, so I always find myself turning it over and using the inside and redoing that again. But I had 3 inserts, so I'm doing 3 different ones and I did the same thing for both sides of these index tabs. So just for me, I like it as a designation that there's a page to turn there. That's one of the main things. And then just one last look here at the page with the inserts there, flipping through. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. I think I have a little outro coming up. Thanks so much for hanging out with me while I worked on my July Project Life spread. Please feel free to subscribe down below or check out my blog or website, allieedwards.com, for more inspiration, information, classes, products, you name it. Memory keeping, we've got it.